Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Please excuse our slightly tardy attendance here. We are going from meeting to meeting upstairs, and our previous meeting went long, so here we are. So let's go ahead and jump in. Do we have public comment? Do we have anybody here for public comment?
No, we do not have anybody.
Okay, and so we will jump right in. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Baker to get us started.
Thank you. So we are pleased this afternoon.
Sorry to interrupt. I need to establish a quorum. Member Lopez.
Present.
Member Otto.
Here.
President Craighead.
Here.
Vice President Miller.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm pleased to kick off this afternoon on our afternoon session. We will have the pleasure of hearing from staff and a panel of students, specifically around progress monitoring of Interim Guardrail 3B. Interim Guardrail 3B gives us a lens into Guardrail 3, which is the superintendent may not allow implementation or adoption of any classroom curricula or programming that does not prioritize educational and racial equity. And as a reminder, a guardrail is an opportunity to see values in action. And so today, actually tonight, the report that is on the evening agenda for monitoring of Guardrail 3B is item, let me go back to my notes, item 18.3. But this special session allows us to hear, because this is the first time that we're monitoring this guardrail, to hear from staff and to hear from students about their implementation of the efforts that surround Guardrail 3. And so today, Guardrail 3 calls us in to study schools achieving or maintaining at least 80% favorable response for sense of belonging as measured by the Pulse survey, and reduce any gap to zero between students of color and all other students. And so the report, which I can speak to just briefly because actually the panel will illuminate the things that are in the report, but it's in tonight's evening agenda, that reminds us about the Pulse survey. It's a short survey that students take 3 times a year, taking a pulse on their wellness. And what we'll hear about today are some broad implications of that survey, and also specifically from students about sense of belonging and why sense of belonging matters to them as part of their educational journey. You will hear staff talk about training, culture and climate leadership teams, and the way that they're interacting with curriculum and teachers and counselors and others who support students, around signature practice development, and then tools and materials that they use to support students in their well-being. And then specifically, we have an opportunity to hear from students about how they're activating their own sense of agency in co-design with adults at their school around topics that connect to sense of belonging. And so with that in mind, we have a shared facilitation this afternoon. Mr. Zaid and Mr. Moskovitz will engage with our first 2 panelists, adults, with some questions around sense of belonging and how it pertains to support staff. So with that in mind, I will pass to the 2 of you.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. We're very excited to have Kate Comatz and Dr. Rashawn Williams here. Why don't we just start out, if you can turn your mics on and tell us who you are and what you do.
Great, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Kate Comatz. I'm the head counselor for elementary schools for Long Beach Unified School District, obviously. And I've been with the district since 1996.
Good afternoon, all. I am Rashawn Reed Williams. I am the very, very proud principal of Washington Middle School, landing at the Butler campus. I've been in the district for over 30 years and am excited about where we've been and where we are going.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask the first question, then Mr. Zaid will follow up from there. Really, these questions are open to each of you. You probably have some more specialized answers depending on the question, but feel free to jump in on any of them. So the first one, probably mostly for you, Ms. Comatz. How are counselors supporting the development of sense of belonging in our students?
Okay. So it starts out in the beginning of the year when counselors, typically in individual classrooms, go in for wellness lessons. They start with mental wellness, suicide prevention in September, and then focus on bullying, harassment prevention, sexual harassment prevention, and consent. So those go through up until December. The reason I bring those up is that's kind of the beginning of the relationship with the counselors and their students in the classrooms, getting to know them. They also, every slide deck with those lessons provides an opportunity for counselors to talk about trusted adults at the school site. So it's a reminder that, of course, they're going to have the relationship with the classroom teacher, but there are counselors, school psychologists, principals, custodians, other office supervisors, staff that also support the students at the school site to make it a welcoming place to be. So that's kind of the beginning of the classroom, the students and the counselor relationship. And then many counselors do continue that relationship with students in the classroom with lessons around friendship, getting along with others, managing their emotions, dealing with their feelings. And again, that's kind of a site-by-site decision and determination. Counselors also are typically a part of the culture climate leadership team, supporting their positive behavior intervention systems at the school sites. And counselors work alongside the principals and other support staff to make sure that students are getting recognized for good behavior, following directions, and also supported in their academics, social, emotional, and of course, attendance is also a big part of that team as well. So those are a few ways that counselors at the elementary school level support students.
Did you want to add to that, Dr. Williams? I don't know if you, I mean, this is,
What she said,
what she
same
said,
thing.
okay. That was mostly for Kate, so. David, take it away.
Yeah, I'll ask the next question, definitely for both, and it is, what curriculum or resources are schools using to support the development of students' sense of belonging?
Real simple. I don't know about curriculum, but the resources are students. Students. We're asking students what it is that they want, and that comes with some accountability. So when you say, we went in today and they said, every classroom should have newsletters. Not a problem. Who's gonna do it? And so it becomes an opportunity for us to hear from our students on what it is that they want. And then as a team, we work together to support them in getting it done, but not taking on ownership, but making sure that that ownership is shared.
At the elementary level, we have the Harmony Academy curriculum for social emotional learning, and that program is available. Typically, the resources are online, and they're available for free for all teachers in Long Beach Unified. It is a Tier 1 program intended for the classroom teacher to facilitate those lessons that do support the CASEL competencies, which are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So teachers can have training either individually. We've partnered with OCIPD. That is the adopted curriculum that we adopted in 2023. And all counselors have been trained in the Harmony curriculum as well as the resources. They sometimes will also support their teachers with the Harmony implementation. Harmony has a foundation of everyday practices of Harmony goals, which are co-constructed with students and teachers to support student expectations in the classroom. And then the other key components of the everyday practices are meetups and buddy-ups. So it gives an opportunity for students to get to know each other. So even though Ms. Williams and I might be best friends and neighbors, we walk to school together, but we're gonna and we may be in the same class, but we're gonna get to know all the students in the classroom through these different activities that are throughout the school day in all the classrooms, and at age-appropriate questions and activities for students to buddy up, and also a meetup. Sometimes schools may call them morning routines, or welcoming routines, or morning meetings is what I should say. So that's also similar to meetups. So that gives an opportunity for the classroom teacher to get to know the students, not just academically, but their interests outside of the school setting. Outside of the school or the classroom. So that's our main curriculum. And also in middle schools, they also, in high schools, I believe, use Second Step, which is also a social emotional learning curriculum that is supported through OCIPD, and then middle school and high school counselors have access to that.
All right, so a lot of what we're talking about today, and the reason, as Dr. Baker mentioned, this is grounded in our interim Guardrail 3B, which is really about our pulse survey data and how we use that data to assess in multiple areas. But for tonight's conversation later this evening, we'll be talking specifically about students' pulse survey data around sense of belonging. So Dr. Williams, maybe you first, and then Kate as well. Can you speak to how you're using that pulse survey data from an adult perspective? We're going to hear from students a little bit later about how they're using it. But if you can share, what do you do at your school to, once you have that data, then act upon that?
Absolutely. Again, one of the biggest parts that we have on our campus are our students, and then our students help us create our teams. So under the great leadership of our counselor, who is actually on leave right now, Miss Deanna Hernandez, she is over our Wolf support team. And so this team encompasses our school social worker, our psychologist, our nurse, we have a restorative justice counselor, our counselor. They meet once a week on Mondays, and then they come together. When the post survey comes out, those individual student responses, we had some interns last year, so we had more students. But interestingly enough, we had tons of responses, written responses of students saying they needed additional help. This year when we took it, we had fewer responses, which is great, but we were able to tackle those students who said they needed that additional support, and then that was assigned through our counselor and her team at the Wolf support team, and then it was shared then with administration on which are some of our students who are our high need students, so that as a team we're aware of what's happening, and then that information was then passed down to our teachers as well. So that was kind of that tier 3 group, but to really work around sense of belonging and how we can make sure our students want to be here is, in addition to looking at student sense of belonging data, we also looked at, I have a person on campus that I can go to. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody could identify their person. And then once you were identified as somebody's person as the team, then that person needed to really make and reach out and make good relationships with their people. And so it really kind of just was a trickle down effect where everybody was really held accountable to do something with somebody to not only really create that sense of belonging, but to make sure that everybody has somebody so that they really know that they do belong.
And I will echo what Dr. Williams shared, which is I went to a wolf pack a couple years ago with her counselor Hernandez, and I just want to emphasize that it's definitely a team effort, and schools that you can't have sense of belonging owned by the school counselor or by the school principal. It does need to be a team. So whatever that team looks like, it's often people in the office as well as people outside of the office. Can sometimes be a classroom teacher, school psychologist, custodian. When you are communicating about what students need, not everyone feels comfortable with their classroom teacher that they want to talk to. Sometimes it might be a rec aide or a special cafeteria. We have amazing cafeteria workers that really connect with kids. So again, just to echo, it is a team effort. With school counselors and looking at pulse survey data, we do take time during our counselor meetings, and I know middle school does that as well, to look down, because you can drill it down to individual students and how they responded. So at the elementary level, unfortunately, we only have 4th and 5th grade data to look at, but we do take into consideration those students that, like Dr. Williams is referring to, have indicated that they would like to speak to another adult on campus about a problem they may be having. So typically the counselor will facilitate and follow up with those individual students. It does vary school to school and classroom to classroom. If students, sometimes we don't have any, and sometimes, when I say none, I mean maybe in a classroom none, but at a school site, there's always some students that want to speak to an adult. So we try to do that in a timely manner to make sure that students can speak to who they want to speak to. Sometimes, again, it might be the principal, the counselor, might be the classroom teacher. In addition, the school counselors at the elementary level look at that data to determine if there are students that might have a difficult time or indicate in the survey that they have a difficult time making a friend. And then in those cases, some counselors have created groups where they can facilitate friendship activities and ways for the students to feel connected. So we do use that data in different ways. Sometimes you might see classroom trends, that if classroom might have a difficult time. So again, that would be an opportunity for a counselor to go in and support the teacher with maybe those harmony resources and give that classroom an opportunity to increase their sense of community and building opportunities to build community. So counselors, it usually comes easy to work on sense of belonging, and sometimes we need to bring our teachers along with giving them the tools and resources to make sure that they can support students, whoever they may be in their classroom. So did that answer the question for that?
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So we're going to get our students up in a moment, but don't leave just yet.
Okay.
Board, I don't know if any of you have any questions for these adults, and maybe talk about the implementation of supporting sense of belonging or how we might use pulse survey data at the adult level.
I do have a question for either or both. Thank you. Super insightful. So I'm taking this. I'm going to share a reference point. It's our Black Student Achievement Symposium from last year, and I was sitting with Dr. Brown in the audience during our keynote speaker, who called our district in terms of what we were doing for Black students specifically, and really emphasizing the correlation between sense of belonging and academic outcomes, right? And just all kidding aside, and I was sort of going back and forth with Dr. Brown, like, it's interesting because the Pulse survey does show some things. I appreciate the definition of sense of belonging at the bottom of the monitoring report. And we were just sort of spitballing, like, okay, there's clearly a variance with how white students are responding, or all other students of color, or students of color responding and white students are responding. But it's not like a huge gap, right? 3%, 4%, 5% is the highest at grades 6 to 8. So I'm curious, given that there are some limitations with the Pulse survey, but we are utilizing it, what else are our principals, our staff, our counselors looking for, thinking about, given that there might be, I don't know this, just hypothesizing, some limitations to what we get from the Pulse survey. So any thoughts about that?
Absolutely. For me, just like with any survey, depending on the day, how you feel is how you respond. And so we recognize that. And so we're not only looking at the numbers when it comes to sense of belonging, but again, we're using our resources and our time. We're talking to our students. We are fortunate to have an advisory class. And so our teachers are checking in with their students every single day, additional 30 minutes. And what's up? What's happening? What's not happening? What do you need to happen so that we can make sure that you want to be here? And sometimes they want to be here, but they can't. It has nothing to do with us. And so it's really going above looking at the numbers and talking to the students.
I would say, in addition to that, counselors also speak with the school nurses, because oftentimes students that may be not feeling comfortable at school might spend a little more time in the nurse's office. So, having those conversations and looking at, nurse, I don't know, they call them logins, to determine, if there's a student kind of with a pattern that may need extra attention. So doing like a check-in, check-out system to connect the student with an adult to kind of see how their day is going and kind of giving them a little pep talk in the morning, glad you're here, and then also following up in the afternoon. I do know too, and I'm sorry, I really don't know specific details, but I do want to share, because I actually spoke to a couple of counselors this week about it, that Dr. Belvin with the Center for Black Student Excellence is also working with our counselors. I can speak at the elementary level, to do groups with African Americans at the school site, especially in schools that may not have a large proportion of African American students. So she's working alongside the school counselor to determine students that might benefit from groups that would also facilitate sense of belonging. So that's something also, and again, I don't have specifics, but
And all of our schools are able to actually look at their student groups in the
Yes.
context of their survey data, and that's actually, you may hear that from our students too, about how they're using that for student groups, but building on Dr. Belvin's work, that takes place also at high school.
Well, one, I was appreciative of Dr. Williams' comment about that person-to-person connection when we talk about a sense of belonging, right? And obviously, because we're talking about Washington, I know some intricate parts of that campus, and I feel like you're underselling it a little bit, Dr. Williams, and I wanted to throw you some alley-oops here. So I know you guys are pretty active on your social media here, right? I know that there was the viral video, S-Back, no stress video, right? And
Dr. Tree in the house.
right. And then there is also your work with Knowledge, right? Which is another group where, once again, they're using cultural influences or social media influences to find connections with the students. Can you just talk a little bit about those partnerships or ideas, so on and so forth?
Absolutely. It takes a team, and it's always important that you surround yourself with people who know a whole lot more than you. And so social media, people who like to do that, have at it. Here are the rules. Make sure you follow the rules, and then let's do it. But then learning, just knowing the importance of attendance and looking at research, what's out there, talking to other people, praying, just to see how we can get the attendance up. And it just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time and was able to make some good connections with some great people. Dr. Amen Ra is phenomenal. And right now we're doing some really, really great work with him. Our students are being rewarded. We're on a 5-day challenge today. So if they make it 5 days, then on Monday they have opportunity to win $100 gift cards and some other gift cards that teachers are donating as well. So we're just really jumping on board, trying to celebrate. I think middle school in general, we're all just working and really, really listening to our students, maybe a lot more than we used to as a middle school. And so as a group, we're just making some great gains and then really looking and leaning on each other for support. You should see the text thread. And so we're just really supportive of each other and then really trying to move forward together.
I was just going to ask, I was looking at the report that the board received, and there's also a couple of references to the Panorama playbook. And so just if you can share just a little bit about what teachers and counselors and those others have access to, and maybe an example of how that is supportive of the work that is going on.
I can start and then add on. So again, Panorama is the Pulse Survey, the owner of the Pulse Survey. They have a lot of resources and activities that are very teacher user friendly. And they will capture if you have a specific need to welcome a student that's new in the middle of the year, and then it will give you some ideas for that. So counselors are aware of that resource. We take time at some point in our counselor meetings, typically in the fall, and review those resources. And then also it's a great opportunity for counselors to share those or principals with teachers in like their weekly SMORE or their communication with their teachers, like a little activity that might support sense of belonging in this case, or whatever other facet of the Pulse survey that might be helpful. So Panorama is a resource. Also, Harmony has resources that's a similar setup that do emphasize little webinars, or they might have just different activities that teachers can easily do. A lot of it is teachers have a lot of resources, and probably sometimes to the point of overwhelm. So I really strongly suggest with counselors and principals to just share little bite-sized things that in like a bulletin that they could just kind of grab and go, so they're not having to dig through or go through all that stuff. So we have lots of information, but a lot of times it's making it accessible and user-friendly. So I would say that's how we use it.
Yeah, again, we're very data rich, and we're also resource rich. And so just making sure that we're utilizing those resources in a way, but it's great to really have them. So like if, you have a question with all the iReady and the Pulse survey as well, there's opportunities to really meet that need, and you don't have to think about it on your own. It's already right there. So it's great to have those resources.
Dr. Baker, just a quick technical question. Thank you for that, bringing that up. Given that we have data for 4th grade and up, 44,000 students responded, do we know what the response rate is, or what percentage of students?
I believe
Fourth
it's
grade and up?
it was 83% with a goal of 80. So we exceeded our initial goal.
Okay, perfect.
Well, we know
Well, 80% answering favorably, but what I'm saying is like the
Oh, the
like
total
total
survey
so
response.
44,422
Yeah.
responded, but what out of what?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you,
It's actually higher than 83%. Yeah.
thank you.
We know you represent great work of lots of other folks, so thank you for taking the time to do that. Dr. Williams, you talked a lot about students, and that is a great segue to our next part, because we're going to bring our students on up. So this is like the 45-second transition. Don't go anywhere. Stay in the room if the two of you would like to hear our students, and we'll get them up here now.
Thank you.
Okay, well, what a wonderful opportunity to see 4 of our brilliant scholars sitting before us to participate in a panel. So all 4 of these students are members of Raising Student Voices and Participation, some of them for more than 1 year. And so rather than me introduce them, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, and you can share your grade level and your pathway. And then all of you have extensive leadership opportunities, things that you have done on campus, things that you have done as service in the communities where you live and through your work efforts and done volunteerism. So as you introduce yourself, think of one thing that really you love to do as a leader or in service in your community, and share that with us. So Naza, you're most well-known in this room, so I'm going to start with you to just introduce yourself, your school and your pathway, and then share something about your leadership or your service.
I am Chimnazmet Maratwala. Most of you know me as Naza. I am a senior at McBride High School in the health and medical pathway. One thing I particularly enjoy doing as a service activity is attending the Cambodia Town Film Festival, where I volunteered every year for the past 2 years. It's super fun to do, and then you get to meet so many amazing aspiring filmmakers and actors, all of Khmer descent, which is really important being a Long Beach community, considering we have the largest population of Khmer people anywhere outside of Southeast Asia.
Hello everyone, my name is Precious Omolafe. I go to Jordan. I'm part of the Ames pathway there. I'm a senior. This is my 2nd year in RZP, and something that really stands out for me in terms of public service was working at the Long Beach Rescue Mission. I was there for about 2 years, and just seeing how I was able to help those people who really needed those necessities was really eye-opening, and it made me realize something I wanted to do was service. So, yeah.
Hola, mucho gusto. My name is Isaac Rodriguez Garcia. I represent the Ames Academy pathway, and I'm also an 11th grader and in Jordan High School. And something that I really loved doing in my public service was I was in the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health for their Wellbeing Center. I was their first participant as well as was a freshman. And what I really loved about it is that we got to represent our peers and the community in their well-being as a mentally and physically as well. So I loved representing it. And also, since I am bilingual, I speak English and Spanish, representing my community who speaks Spanish as well really had a great impact on me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lydia Murray. I'm from Milliken. I'm a 12th grader. I've really loved all of my work with the district and with RSVP, but I think that even more so, I'm in the arts pathway. I'm in Compass at Millikan, and all of my work there has been very close to my heart. All of our art-based clubs, I'm in the fashion program and in leadership there, and we have such an amazing community of artists at Millikan. And that's what I would say is the most important to me, although they are all great.
I think it's interesting that all of you pick something about service and engagement to share. So you may get asked questions about other aspects of your brilliance or your plans after high school, so be ready for that. But you heard adults start to talk about sense of belonging. And so my first question for you is just to reflect and share briefly, why is sense of belonging important to students? And I will just ask you specifically for students who are in high school. Why is it important to have a strong sense of belonging? Why do we focus on that?
First and foremost, as the teachers have shared, it improves students' academic outcomes. When students feel like they belong at school, they're far more motivated and far more inclined to participate, not just in their academics, but in school activities, in clubs, in sports, and in other extracurricular activities. Additionally, it's very, very conducive to a good mental health because it lessens feelings of loneliness and anxiety, and instead allowing them to feel valued and safe, all of which is conducive to improved self-confidence, allowing them to be confident in who they are and who they're becoming, which is extremely important while in high school.
Wow, she basically stole my answer. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was a great answer. Building off of what she said, sense of belonging is very great in terms of their student experience. Again, high school is, you're transforming your identity. You're figuring out where you're going to go, figuring out your career, who you are. And doing that alone is super hard. And I can speak from experience. Coming to high school with no one was really hard for me, but finding a sense of belonging, finding my community who support me and care about me, really helped me succeed and feel welcomed at school. And yeah.
Can I interject really quickly?
Yes.
You just said you felt like you came with no one from middle school to high school. Did you come from one of our junior highs, or did you come from?
Oh, yeah, I did, but everyone went to a different school.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Well, those were two amazing answers. Bouncing off of that, having a strong sense of belonging shapes who you are. It shapes who you want to be in the future and what impact you want to have for your community, as well as Precious. I didn't have anybody when I was transitioning from junior high to high school, as well as I was also just a bilingual learner as well. So I was just speaking mostly Spanish, a little bit of English, but then I also transitioned into more English as well. So then I found my footing, especially in Jordan, with their cultural appropriation and their events as well. So yeah, thank you.
In agreement with everybody so far, but again, with the adding on, in addition to being great for general wellness, we know that sense of belonging is directly connected to academic success, and we want to do everything that we can to get people set up for the best outcomes in and out of high school. To say for the third time, I also didn't know anybody who was going to Millikan from my middle school. And so many of the high schools in Long Beach are so big that it can be really overwhelming, and it can take a long time to figure out where you belong and to find somewhere where you belong. But it really is very, very valuable for all aspects, I think, of a student's life.
Thank you for answering that. Precious, first you, and then Naz, I'm going to turn to you and ask you to share specifically about RSVP, Raising Student Voices and Participation, and its purpose for someone who's never heard about it. And then because you all actually have had different leadership opportunities, how is RSVP different than other things that you have participated in?
Thank you. RSVP stands for Raising Student Voice Participation. It's co-educating, collaborating with people from the district. There are different RSV ambassadors for every high school in the district. And obviously I'm from the Jordan campus. And its purpose is to raise student voice participation, which is what it stands for. And basically its purpose is to make sure that the people that aren't really heard of, like the groups that aren't really uplifted and seem to be marginalized and pushed to the side, are put in the center and are focused on the most. So we make sure that their high school experience is somewhat the same as everyone who, you know, has that community. And what I would say is different is, again, we're put at the center. Students are usually the ones that are following the directions of, you know, people who are like teachers and educators and people from the admin, but it's different in the sense that we're working together. They hear from us, we hear from them, and we're able to create a solution that's very effective for the people that we're working for.
And just to echo Precious, we are RSVP, but we are in essence the superintendent's advisory group. So what we do as students is we have about 30-something odd students from each campus, each high school campus around Long Beach Unified. And our purpose is to address issues at our school sites. But it's not just ideation. Oftentimes where we have students' voices being heard, it's just, oh, what's your problem? And throw out an idea on how you think we're gonna solve that. Whereas with RSVP, we come together with district staff, with admin, with leadership at our various school sites, and we work with them beyond ideation. We work with them at every single step to form a solution that works for the students, which is why we are RSVP. We center student voices. The whole aim is to make sure that the people who are being created for are included in the process we're creating, are included in the creating process. That is what we are. For me, it is particularly different from every other student group I've been part of, because it's not just student-led, where we are working and presenting the ideas and solving everything by ourselves, or where we're being delegated to. Instead, we are working in tandem at every single step.
Well, that was a wonderful way to actually go to the next question, which I would love to invite Isaik and Lydia to respond to. You heard actually some of the elements of liberatory design. And so what have you learned about the liberatory design process that has helped you lead change efforts at your schools to increase student sense of belonging?
So basically what I have learned from the liberatory design process, it's a step-by-step chart that not only teaches you what to think, but how to think. So it was created by the Equity Project so that there wouldn't be systemic oppression when it came to building steps. Because normally when you build steps, you don't notice and reflect, and I'll get back to that right now. So with that systemic oppression, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. So with that liberatory design, it helps us, especially as students, to help the students as well. And just speaking off from Jordan, I'm in charge of the multilingual learners. Me and my partner Skylin, we were in charge of taking the test process into interviewing our students, mostly our multilingual learners. And we helped them notice what was going on, how they felt at Jordan, and reflect of how we as RSVP ambassadors can help them as well. And then how it led change efforts at our schools to increase students' sense of belonging. What it basically helped, as what I said already, is it helps students how to think. It helped them to stay grounded and to also notice that they're not alone. We're here to support them. We are RSVP. And like I loved how Nazda said, is that we're here to represent these students, even though sometimes they may feel alone, they may feel that they don't have no one. But here in this district, I know for sure that RSVP is always here to help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Everything you said was great. Learning about the liberatory design process through RSVP has been so interesting. I didn't know anything about it before I joined the team. It is, like you said, a way of thinking. It's a way of breaking out of traditional ideas of design when we're trying to create new systems. We're trying to change our systems to support people better. We have a series of steps that we go through to iterate and to design. And the key principle is co-design with students and adults, which has been so different from some of my previous experiences. I've always been involved in student leadership, but my relationships with admin have ranged from friendly to Yes. Adversarial. I actually had a word and then it left my brain. Adversarial was my word. But actual co-collaboration has been such a revelation in that department. And I think that we've found that through liberatory design.
You know what, Lydia, keep going. And so one of the questions that I wanted you to be prepared to talk about was the prototyping that you co-designed with your peers and supporting adults at Millikan, and what you've been trying, and actually through a more than year-long process, as you shared, this is your second year in RSVP. What is coming out from the process that you've used? So
Yes. Most of my team are second-year RSVP members at Millikan. We have been working particularly on sense of belonging for and closing those gaps for our Black and Latino students. And we have reached the goal of specifically working on a mentorship program. We wanted to connect underclassmen with upperclassmen. We identified that as one of the weakest links. So the hardest part of being in high school is that adjustment period. And we have we're improving and we're working with them. Our Rambassadors, which I think is our link crew adjacent program, is what we call it. They hadn't been empowered to really continue their work after orientation and the first day of school. And so we kept hearing from people. We start with pulse survey data, and then we also did a lot of interviews and shadowing and stuff. And what we would hear from people is that once they actually got to Millikan, they felt lost and they felt like they didn't have that support anymore. And it's such a big school. You have to find your own community and your own place to belong, and we want that for everyone. We have been prototyping ways and events to get upperclassmen connected to underclassmen and getting feedback. We had an inaugural event. It went really well, but still figuring out how we can make it better, how we can get people, how you can design an event such that people actually make new connections with new people. I was just reading through with my team our feedback form from that day. And it went really well, and we had lots of good feedback, but also continuing with the idea of new connections. How do you make sure that people are meeting new people? Because I think there was one of our constructive pieces of feedback was people were finding existing friends or people they already knew, and one of our goals was to split up some of the mentors to find underclassmen, because we had gotten this focus group so we had got volunteers for the upperclassmen, and then we invited a focus group of underclassmen that we had identified with our supporting adults from pulse survey data that were underrepresented, underinvolved, potentially at risk of having more trouble. Maybe you're looking for people who want to be involved but are having trouble finding those opportunities. That was the group that we were looking for, that we thought we could help the most with this kind of a program. We wanted them to meet people, and then you can take them. So our upperclassmen were really involved, so they can take them to their clubs. They can get them into programs. We have so many amazing culture clubs at Millikan, and great opportunities if you can find them, if you're willing to put yourself out there. And not every kid is outgoing enough to show up to clubs they don't know, people they've never met before. And they're trying to figure out. Freshmen in high school are very concerned about what is cool. And it's not crazy of them, because they need friends, and so they don't want to do things that they're concerned will not, look good. It's hard to be 15. So, yes.
And what
Get
you
them in the
shared,
right
I
rooms.
don't want to lose the opportunity to really amplify, because you have, as you have talked about RSVP, all of you have mentioned co-design. You've used your own words to talk about co-design. In RSVP, the work that you're doing, and specifically, Lydia, what you shared, involves supporting adults, co-designing. You got pulse survey data, a specific aspect of pulse survey data that was a group of students that most needed to increase their sense of belonging. Rather than just inviting everybody, you had intentional co-design with your administrator, Dr. Alexander, and others. And so that was really, really special, what Dr. Twell and I got to be there to see the launch day. You had good candy too, I have to say. But what's important about that is you used your empathy data. You went out and asked, what would you like to have at an event like this? It wasn't just what you thought students would like. You actually asked students. So with that in mind, my last question is for all of you, and just to think about your pulse survey data and or empathy data, because a number of you actually went out and collected other kinds of data to get closer to students who were impacted by something. So share about using the pulse survey data and any other empathy data that you collected to inform your plans for how you were addressing student belonging. And then if there's any other ways that you have partnered with adults from Jordan, from McBride, to think about that co-design process, students and adults learning from one another and designing with each other. Share an example of that. So any part of that question that resonates with you.
At McBride, we identified that a lot of our students felt we had a reduced sense of belonging at our school site. So what we noticed as we were going through the pulse survey data is that it seemed to be a lot of students who didn't necessarily live in the geographical area of our school. Being a thematic school, we are a smaller school, so a lot of our students aren't from that neighborhood. And so we partnered with our administrator, Dr. Den, who then allowed us to see the geographical data of our school. So we saw that a lot of our kids came actually from North Long Beach and West Side Long Beach, which, engaging in further interviews and shadowing and empathy data, we found that a lot of what made them feel like they weren't connected to our school, that they weren't involved particularly with our school, is the fact that they couldn't be present at school activities, more because of the time and the distance it takes to get to these events. And one thing about our school is that we have a huge Latino population, which, if you know, is a more low-income part of our community. And we found that a lot of those students take the bus. And when you live in North Long Beach, you're not going to take a 2-hour bus ride to go home and then come back to school. When you live in West Side, you're not going to take the 3 buses to return back to school. And so we worked with our students after finding that data. We worked with our students. We hosted an event, found students who lived further from our school, who wanted to be involved, who you could see that they were trying to be present at these school activities, engage in any way that they could. And we sat them down and we were like, hey, what are some events that we could design together that would allow you to participate? What are some shifts that you think we could make to make these events more accessible to you? And so we had our students come up with some ideas, and they were really spitballing. They had created really amazing ideas, such as like pushing back school activities, or even having activities, school-sanctioned activities closest to the geographic area that they lived in. Having activities to improve like engagement in sports that we have small school sports. So improve engagement in that. All of which serve to improve our sense of belonging. All of which stemmed from the pulse survey data that we got.
With our peer and our empathy interviews, I was working more towards the African American group. We were trying to increase their sense of belonging, again, both in and out of the classroom. And we had our Northside Connect that would help our African American students, but listening to what they had to say, we realized that they wanted something that connected them to their roots, connected them to their culture. Like our school is predominantly Hispanic, so our events would technically be tailored to the majority, but listening to the African American community, we realized that they needed more cultural events. So we had a better thought out African American assembly during Black History Month. Our spirit weeks were more, we heard from them, and we carried out the things that they wanted during their spirit week and what they wanted to see. And I think that was really helpful for them to see they really hear what we have to say. And then again, collaborating with school administrators, Miss Irving, she's very accessible, and she's very willing to willing to hear you out and just being there for us. And Miss Green, she's here, and she's very helpful, and hearing our students is very important, very significant to our mission. So I think in terms of sense of belonging, having school administrators who are here to support us makes our goal very effective and helps it shorten it down and cut it down to, within the school year. So yeah.
So at Jordan, we reviewed the pulse survey and the empathy data. And since I already mentioned I was in charge of the multilingual learners, what we found at Jordan is that their sense of belonging wasn't there. They felt oppressed. They felt that they didn't belong just because they only spoke predominantly Spanish. And as a multilingual learner as well, I felt that it really hit at home, because as a Hispanic person myself, you don't want to be at like anywhere at all where you don't feel comfortable. So what I talked with them about as well, and what we heard from them, is that they want to have a safe space. They want to have a space where it feels welcoming to all students, but it also feels like a space where they feel belonged as well. And as I also wanted to say too, is that one of our prototypes that we wanted to try out as well at Jordan is opening up a room where it would be like a lounge, and there would be a lot of students who could go in, have fun, play cards, just talk with them as well. And we are not closing it just off to only, Spanish speakers. It's for everybody at Jordan so that they connect with each other as well. And then something that I wanted to talk about at our school site meeting as well is that we also had our Spanish speakers attend the meeting, and I was also giving them translation to the meeting as well. And then after, something that really hit home for me is that one of them came up to me. He was shy, obviously, and in Spanish he told me that muchas gracias por no nomás hablar conmigo, pero mirarme. And in that, he told me, translating in English, is thank you. Thank you for not only hearing me, but seeing me. And I'm trying not to cry, but for me, that really hit home. That hit home because, I just wanted to represent, my peers, and I felt like, I'm sorry. Me and my group did that. And also another thing, one of our Vietnamese students as well, I think either Dr. Baker or Dr. Toll heard this. He said that after our meeting, he said it was the best day ever. It was the best day ever because we represented them. We represented all of our students at Jordan. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like I've talked a little bit about how we've used pulse survey data at Millikan. It's definitely both. We always start with the pulse survey data, but I think that it is incomplete in comparison to when you add on focus groups and interviews and shadowing and talking with people and conversations. It's a great tool. I think also as students get older, they're more likely to rush through it. They take it a little bit less seriously. I still think it's really important, and I tell my friends that they should do it and that they should be honest and take some time with it. But it's not the complete picture. So we like doing both. We like looking at the pulse survey data and adding on top of it other pieces of data that can show more of a whole person, more empathy. So both. I would say do both.
Well, thank you for being the amazing students that you are and representing all from RSVP and all students from across our high schools and what you shared this afternoon. This concludes my questions, but I imagine you're going to have a few questions to my left. So I will open it up for those questions.
You all are going to make me cry too. Incredibly amazing. Thank you for sharing. So all of you in your own way reference the strong correlation between sense of belonging and success, whether that's academic success, your own personal success, your story of success. And you've all obviously participated in this wonderful RSVP, right? Knowing full well, and you've all described it, that not all students have either the confidence yet or the motivation yet or access to these opportunities, whether it's an activity, an event, a program that you all are having impact. What do we say to our emerging bilinguals, our Black students, our students with disabilities, our students in our foster care system? Because not all of them are yet able to be involved or engaged. So how do we I guess the question is, how do we make the RSVP experience the LBUSD experience? Not to put everyone on the spot right now with that, but again, you've all touched on what you've gotten out of these opportunities. My understanding is RSVP, many more students might be able to participate, and that's sort of where I'm coming from in the question.
So to answer your question as well, one of the multilingual learners actually wanted to join RSVP because of our meeting, and just having that sense of inclusivity as well, bringing all of them together in that one shared space, which was our community room, really helped them, to break down and to notice and reflect, like how in the liberatory design process states as well, to notice, yes, in life, as we all know it, we do have our issues. There are issues in school, issues in our government, issues that we have in our own personal lives. But then the reflection is that how can we, even as students, help to alleviate and even solve the issue? So, to answer your question as well, just having, that sense of belonging with our students, opening the doors to RSVP, to all of LBUSD for our high schoolers to join, it's going to be a wonderful experience, and I really hope they get to do it as well. So, thank you.
I have one thing, if you're asking more so what you can do. I think everybody as adults, as administrators, teachers, everything that you can do that makes students feel heard and listened to will make them want to be involved and want to be a part of the community at their school, in the district, in the city. Listening to, I said making them feel, but do also actually listen. Do both.
For me, in my mind, making sure that every student feels like they belong is the way to make the RSVP experience, the LBUSD experience. Because in reality, why we are part of RSVP is because we are so committed to our schools. It's because we care so much, because we are highly involved. It's that sense of belonging that makes us RSVP. So if we make that, if we figure out how to make sure that every single student in LBUSD feels, I belong to my school. This is the place where I feel happy, I feel loved, I feel welcome, I feel accepted. If we make that the experience for every single student, we successfully made that the RSVP experience.
Building off of Naza, I feel like your question, I feel like it would start at the school level, making sure they, again, are committed to their campus. They would feel like they are able or ready to commit to their district. I think creating that sense of belonging, having a welcoming atmosphere that makes them feel like they can be themselves in any room that they present. I think that would help with making that a LBUSD experience.
Maybe a follow-up question for Dr. Baker is, how does a student right now participate in RSVP, Dr. Baker?
Yeah, so RSVP actually spans now elementary, middle, and high school at the district level. We started with high school and then elementary and then in the middle school. So there are advisory groups for all three levels. And what's neat, so there's an application process and an engagement process. High school students actually apply. They apply either for student board member and or RSVP member in the same application. In addition, what's exciting about what the students have shared is that many of our high schools in particular have developed clubs that are RSVP clubs, where they're trying out some of the tools of collaborative or co-design with adults on their own campus, and then that club is connected to the RSVP district network. So we're seeing lots of different ways that both specific to RSVP, but how the tools and others are influencing the work of clubs and other aspects of what goes on campuses.
So I don't want to make any assumptions here, but I earlier asked the question to Precious if she was in our system before high school, because as a student who also came up through the Long Beach Unified School District, I think that there's like a natural group of relationships that get carried over that improve your sense of belonging, because I had some folks from junior high or some folks from elementary school that I saw and I knew. And so, it just creates this natural sense of community. But I can't help but be maybe even hypersensitive to those that aren't part of Long Beach, right? That are new to our system, right? That are coming from another state or from another town and have now joined the Long Beach Unified School District and don't have that historical relationship that comes with that, right? And so everybody is new to them, and all the way that we do things are new to them. So from your perspective, you guys know some of those kids, right? You guys know the student who comes from Georgia and they got a fancy accent and they're looking for new friends. What are your suggestions on our system improving the sense of belonging for those kids when they're coming from a new district, a new town, a new state?
And just to add on, there's also students who come from other countries as well.
Right, yeah.
And we also have Vietnamese students as well at Jordan. And our number one priority as RSVP is to make them more comfortable. And can you repeat a little bit of the question as well?
Yes, I was just curious about some of your suggestions from an anecdotal standpoint on how we as a system can create a more conducive space for people who come from out of town, out of state, out of country, so on and so forth. Like, what can we do as a system to make them feel more or just as comfortable as those who have grown up in the Long Beach Unified School District?
I feel like implementing, at each school, a cultural center. That's how I see it as well, a cultural center, not just for one predominant race or ethnicity, but, for every culture, just having one center that, invites every student from all backgrounds would be just a wonderful thing. And not only just at the high school level, but for middle schoolers and elementary students, because not only do they get to learn about their culture, they get to learn about other cultures as well. And I feel like it would just be a really good idea to implement in LBUSD because we are equity and excellence.
I actually came to Long Beach Unified after being in Texas, and then I moved to California, but I was in Carson before I came to Long Beach. So for me, one thing that really helped me adapt to the new system, new faces, new people, was that I had a counselor who was constantly checking in on me. She made the time to make sure that I had friends. She forced me to sit with people I'd never met before and just made sure that I had a community. And like what Isaac said, having a cultural center where people could meet one another and learn about different cultures, but making sure as well that there's some adult support and making sure that these kids have friends, that they're introduced to some communities, some clubs, something of that nature. That's what really integrates students into school community.
I would think something that would help is having an event where kind of like where colleges do admitted day, where everyone, they either can fly them out or, people from the local, they can people from the local area can come and basically find new friends from different schools. Like, obviously, they're not from the area, but having just a space where all of them can come together in one and socialize and mingle, even though they aren't from different schools, they do have someone to lean on. So, yeah.
I've been really lucky at Millikan, agreeing with everything that everybody has said. In addition, I've been very lucky at Millikan with, I think that, especially in Compass, but a lot of the school, we have a really welcoming culture. And I think that everything you can do to cultivate that culture in the adults and in the students. A lot of my really close friends right now all went to Minigant and Stanford and Millikan together. And I did not. I didn't go to either of those schools. But in the fashion program and in Compass and all of the classes that I've met my friends, people at Millikan are very welcoming. And I think that that is something that is led first by the adults. And it carries down into student culture. I think everything that you can do to make students accepting of other new students can be really helpful.
So making sure every campus has a Michelle Green.
Speaking of that, as we close, I would like to acknowledge we have several supporting adults in the audience, including Miss Ray from McBride, Dr. Alexander from Millikan, and Miss Green from Jordan. Did I miss anybody that's here? Oh, Dr. Dunn. Can't see you. Great. Dr. Levitt, supporting adults matter in terms of what we have heard from our students. So Thank you for bringing your beautiful advocacy voices and sharing your intellect and sharing your thoughts on how we can make our schools better. You have represented all students just beautifully, so thank you. We want you to stay put. We're going to ask the Board of Education to come stand behind you to take a picture. So we'll take a pause in the meeting. Yes.
So I just want to thank all the students for being here. It's so nice to have the support from the administrators. It's always a highlight when we can hear from our students, and they did such a great job. So thank you, everyone. This part of the meeting is adjourned. This special meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene at 5 o'clock for our regular board meeting. Thank you, everyone.